The man who was cleaning the deck 1 second ago is now severed into 2 parts. Immediately after, the helicopter parked nearby shatters into thin slices. As the massive ship enters the canal, a type of nanofiber emerges on both sides of the river. This incredibly strong and resilient nanofiber can slice the entire cruise ship into pieces, just like cutting tofu. All the passengers inside the ship are sliced into fragments. In this episode, we continue to bring you the sci-fi masterpiece The Three-Body Problem. In 1966, at Tsinghua University in Beijing, China, a group of students were criticizing physics professor Yi Zhitai. He incorporated the course on relativistic mechanics into the foundational curriculum, which led to him being labeled as a monster. His daughter, Yi Wenjie, witnessed her father's death firsthand. The following year, Wenjie was sent to Inner Mongolia for reform, where she encountered journalist Bai Mulin. They resonated on the topic of environmental protection, and Bai Mulin lent Wenjie an English edition of Silent Spring. The two young people gradually developed feelings for each other, but unexpectedly, an incident occurred. The platoon leader discovered Wenjie's English book, and demanded an explanation of its origin. Wenjie didn't confess, and Bai Mulin, who was standing by, was very afraid. He didn't dare to come forward and take responsibility, and he watched Wenjie being taken away. On that day, Deng Lihua, the military representative of the Intermediate Court Military Commission, came to visit the imprisoned Wenjie. Deng Lihua's purpose for this visit was to have Wenjie sign a document regarding her father. Deng Lihua also mentioned that Wenjie's mother had already signed it, and as long as Wenjie added her own signature, she could return to the core like her mother did. Wenjie took the file from her hand and looked through it. She discovered that it was filled with unjust accusations against her father. She refused to sign on it, and Deng Lihua's smile faded. Deng Lihua splashed water on Wenjie, soaking her clothes and bedding with icy water. Wenjie fell into a feverish coma, and when she regained consciousness, she was escorted to the Red Coast base. It turned out that the organization valued Wenjie's academic abilities, and wanted her to participate in a top-secret project. The purpose of this project was to send signals into space. Wenjie soon discovered that the system radiation was adjustable, and the frequency and amplitude of the signals were constantly changing. In other words, the base was not researching weapon systems. Their goal was to communicate with extraterrestrial civilizations. In 2024 in London, several scientists had committed suicide in the past few months. Detective Colin entered a sealed apartment building. Dr. Sadiq Mohammed, a leading candidate for the next Nobel Prize in Physics, lived here. It was surprising that such a genius had chosen to end his own life. Before his death, he left a mysterious note on the wall, resembling a countdown. At the end of the numbers was a line of blood-written words. I can still see. At Oxford University's Particle Accelerator Laboratory, it was the final day before its closure. For the past month, the accelerator had been producing inexplicable data that could potentially overturn all physics knowledge accumulated over the past 60 years. This greatly frustrated 32-year-old Saul. He believed that he would never achieve any academic accomplishments in his lifetime. The project leader, Vera Yi, had been consoling him. However, a few hours later, to everyone's surprise, Vera Yi entered the particle accelerator and jumped into the Cherenkov reservoir. The next day, several close colleagues attended the funeral. Vera's mother sat in the front row. It was revealed that she was Yi Wenjie. After the funeral, Oxford colleagues went to a nearby place to have drinks. The 5 people at this table were known as the Oxford Five. Some of the roles of characters like Wang Miao, Cheng Xin, and Yun Chenming from the original work were distributed among these 5 individuals. At that moment, a woman named Augie went outside to smoke and calm down. Since yesterday, she suddenly saw a countdown in front of her eyes. Augie racked her brains but couldn't figure out what was going on. Unexpectedly, a woman approached and asked Augie, "How much time is left on your countdown?" Augie was extremely shocked by her words. The girl continued, saying that it was simple to make the countdown stop. Augie had to quit her job and give up her research on nanofibers. Only then would the countdown disappear. If the number reaches 0, something bad will happen. Augie asked the girl who she was, but the girl didn't answer. She instructed Augie to look up at the sky tomorrow at midnight, saying that the entire universe would twinkle for her. After saying this, the girl placed the cigarette box on the steps and walked away. Meanwhile, Colin, under the orders of his superior Wade, was investigating the deaths of various scientists. He focused his attention on the Oxford Five, and a person named Evans. This individual had rarely appeared since taking over his father's oil company in 1984. Wade also mentioned an Iranian scientist who recently died, and had a peculiar metal hat. "Find a way to get that hat for me," he said. Colin didn't pay much attention to this, unaware that there was also such a hat in Vera Yi's home. Her friend Cheng Jin was very curious about what it was. Yi Wenxie said that this is a gaming equipment her daughter often plays with. Cheng Jin didn't find any interface on it, and curiously put it on her head. Little did she know, the next second, she found herself in a desert, wearing hanfu. Cheng Jin was blown back by the strong wind, and accidentally stepped on something. She lowered her head, and was surprised to see a corpse. Cheng Jin quickly took off the metal hat. On the other side, Augie opened the cigarette box, and saw something strange. After she looked it up, she found that it was a promotional item from breakfast cereal, and had been discontinued since 1963. By midnight, Augie called for Saul, and they both looked up at the night sky. They noticed that the stars were twinkling in a pattern. Saul realized that it was a Morse code. After deciphering it, he obtained a series of numbers, and the last digit was decreasing. Augie realized that those were her countdown numbers. People around the world witnessed the phenomenon of that night. However, Saul believed it was just an image manipulation trick, because no satellite detected what happened last night. But Augie knew things weren't that simple. In order to save her own life, she decided to halt the nanotech work. Augie couldn't face the disappointment of her colleagues, so she left the company. Fortunately, the countdown in front of her finally disappeared. At that moment, Colin suddenly approached Augie for a conversation. Augie confessed about the countdown, and her conversation with the mysterious girl. Upon hearing this, Colin pulled up the surveillance footage of the bar alley from last night. The footage showed Augie talking to herself and behaving strangely. There was no mysterious girl beside her. What's even more eerie is that someone helped Augie light her cigarette, but the surveillance didn't capture that person. Colin informed Augie that many top scientists also saw the countdown, and their fate boils down to two possibilities. Either they stop their work like Augie, or they die like Vera Yi. On the other side, Cheng Jin put the metal hat on again. Immediately after, NPC Count of the West appeared with his followers. They said this place is Civilization 137. Cheng Jin's mission is to unravel the mysteries of this world. The first step is to enter the pyramid and meet Emperor Ju. This is a chaotic era world. Whenever a new era arrives, Emperor Ju will ask the prophet about the pattern of the sun's movement. At that time, he must determine whether the future will be a chaotic era or a stable era. If the judgment is wrong, the entire civilization will be destroyed. As the three of them were rushing on their way, they noticed the sun rising. Count of the West immediately took the two of them to hide behind a giant stone, but the shadow of the rock could only cover two people. Count of the West pushed the follower out, and the poor girl was dried up by the sun. When the sun gradually set, Count of the West came out and wrapped up the girl's skin. As long as they wait for the arrival of the stable era, soaking the skin in water will revive the follower. This is how they survive the chaotic era. As long as one person survives, the civilization can continue. Cheng Jin was greatly shocked. She took off her metal hat and called Julian, one of the Oxford Five, asking him to try on the helmet. Yet, this time the NPC didn't appear, and the system indicated that Julian hadn't been invited. He was killed the next second. The pain from the knife strike felt so real that Julian concluded this technology was at least 50 or even 100 years ahead of the present. In order to figure out Vera Yi's death and its connection to the helmet, the two of them had no choice but to enter the game once again. No matter how many times Julian tried, he would be killed. It seemed that this task could only be entrusted to Cheng Jin. This time, Cheng Jin entered the interior of the pyramid, where Count of the West was using the divination method of the Book of Changes, I Ching, to speculate on the pattern of the sun. Cheng Jin pointed out that this method was not scientific, but Emperor Ju ignored her. At this moment, Count of the West's divination result was revealed, stating that the chaotic era would continue for another 8 days, followed by a glorious stable era lasting 63 years. Upon hearing this, Emperor Ju ordered to observe the sky, and the skylight above them opened. Count of the West instructed Cheng Jin to place her hand on the ground, which would accelerate the passage of time. Cheng Jin followed the instructions. The starry sky above indeed accelerated its movement, and the celestial phenomenon indicated a stable era of 63 years. Emperor Ju immediately ordered the soaking of the dried skins of the people, allowing the dormant dynasty to fully awaken. Countless skins were thrown into the water, and in the blink of an eye, they transformed into lively individuals. Cheng Jin also threw the follower into the water for revival, but unexpectedly, the sky suddenly darkened, and a cold wave followed. The just revived people started pushing and shoving each other, their minds lost due to the freezing cold. The follower, caught in the crowd's turmoil, shouted for help. Cheng Jin pushed her way through and grabbed onto her. Little did they know, the moment they made contact, the follower turned into pieces and scattered in the wind. All the people who were just revived had died, and then the system notification sounded, declaring the extinction of Civilization 137 in the extreme cold. Nevertheless, Cheng Jin performed well. She proved that science stands above mysticism, and could advance to the next level. This time, Cheng Jin must use science to save the next civilization. On the other hand, Julian had just returned home and received a brand new metal helmet, along with a card inviting him to the game. Julian immediately put on the metal helmet, but he didn't expect the game to change its settings based on the player. He found himself in England, and the NPC in front of him turned into a count. Julian was determined to avenge the beheading, and punched the NPC right away. Fortunately, the mission still proceeded smoothly. Julian's experience in the first level was similar to Cheng Jin's. He immediately shared it with one of the Oxford 5, Will Downing. Unexpectedly, Will Downing appeared distraught. It turned out that he had pancreatic cancer, already in the 4th stage, and had only a few months left. The scene shifts back to the storyline of the Red Coast base. Yi Wenjie devotes herself wholeheartedly to the research project and finally makes progress. One day, she reads a foreign literature, and through Chief Engineer Yang Weining, she secretly contacted the author of that paper. As a result, she learned that both the Red Coast base and the United States detected the same electromagnetic radiation on the same day, but the base was 13 minutes later than the US. The reason for this deviation is that the US signal originated from Jupiter, while the base's signal came from the Sun. This means that the Sun not only reflected the signal from Jupiter, but also amplified it by nearly 100 million times, before projecting it onto the base. If the base can make good use of the Sun as this super antenna, it might actually be able to transmit signals to places with extraterrestrial civilizations, although the waiting time for a response may be measured in years. If successful, China would become a pioneer in interstellar communication technology. Yi Wenjie immediately shared the plan with Yang Weining, but to her disappointment, he took all the credit when reporting to political commissar Lei Jiqing. However, Lei Jiqing rejected this plan, because Red Sun had political implications, and it was not appropriate to emit powerful electromagnetic waves towards it. Yi Wenjie didn't care about these concerns. So, during the next signal transmission, she took advantage of everyone's inattention, and secretly aimed the radar at the Sun. In 2024, Colin went to report the Evans incident to his superior. Since the Starry Flash event, Colin had been digging deeper into information related to radio telescopes. He discovered that in 1977, Ohio State University detected a continuous 72-second signal known as the WOW signal. This signal was likely an attempt to communicate with extraterrestrial beings, and it was received in 2 locations worldwide. At that time, there was an observatory in northeastern China in addition to Ohio. Evans was in China in 1977. The Red Coast base was preparing to establish an observatory, and Yi Wenjie encountered Evans during the site selection. Evans, a wealthy second generation, was planting trees and saving birds here, aiming to rescue a subspecies of the northwest brown swallow. Yi Wenjie noticed a copy of Silent Spring on his desk, and they shared many similarities. They both cared for the environment and felt disappointed with humanity. After returning to the base, Kika sent a group of reformed prisoners, including the female student Tang Hongjing, who had beaten her father to death with a belt. Now, the two meet again, and Tang Hongjing has lost one arm. She contracted gangrene while working in Shirank's Red Heart project, and the guards pinned her to the ground and severed her arm. Despite enduring so much suffering and reformation, Tang Hongjing feels no guilt whatsoever. She boldly declares that even if given another chance, she would kill Yi Jitai. Yi Wenjie deeply realizes the inherent flaws of humanity. That evening, as usual, she listens to signals. Over the years, Yi Wenjie has never slackened in her efforts. And finally, on this night, she receives a response from extraterrestrial beings. Yi Wenjie decrypts the message without informing anyone, and discovers that it is a warning from extraterrestrial beings. They instruct Yi Wenjie not to respond, and claim to be pacifists. If this message is seen by other extraterrestrial beings, Earth will be occupied. That's why it instructed Yi Wenjie not to reply. But Yi Wenjie is already disappointed with humanity. She disregards the warning and sends a reply. Earth civilization is unable to save itself. I will help you take over this world. Yi Wenjie becomes the first traitor of Earth. In the year 2024, another scientist committed suicide. Colin found a metal cap at his home. On the other side, the Oxford 5 gathered at Julian's house. Augie discovered the same metal cap. She picked it up and tried it on. She successfully entered the game world. However, she was killed by an NPC the next second. The reason was the same as Julian's before. She didn't receive a game invitation. Augie asked what the cap was, but Julian didn't know its origin. He checked the surveillance footage from the night the cap appeared. He didn't find any suspicious individuals. Augie and Saul believed that this kind of technology was too dangerous, so they told Julian and Cheng Jin not to play anymore. If the metal cap is a brain-computer interface, it means it can control all sensory inputs and outputs of the player. Maybe this thing caused Vera's death. Julian and Cheng Jin verbally promised them that they won't touch the cap again. but they immediately made plans to play the game together. Unbeknownst to them, Colin was monitoring everything. This time, the two of them activated the multiplayer mode. The followers clearly remembered them. She urged the two of them to quickly go see the Pope. The Pope posed an old question, asking the players to describe the movement pattern of the sun. Cheng Jin, before this, had played countless times on her own. She measured the size and brightness of the sun dozens of times. She found that they didn't match, and the sun's position relative to this planet was gradually moving away on a short time scale. She observed more than one celestial body. Their brightness was too high to be planets. They were moving relative to the background of stars. The only explanation for these observations is that these planets are part of a trinary star system. When our planet orbits one of the suns in a stable manner, it's called a stable era. Otherwise, it's a chaotic era. Cheng Jin's speculation was very rigorous, but the Pope ordered her to be burned at the stake. In the next moment, flames ignited outside the palace. Burning followers rode in on horses, shouting about Trisolar Day and the world is about to be destroyed. After the fire, everything was burned to ashes. An NPC female swordsman appeared, announcing that Civilization No. 152 was destroyed by the Trisolar Day. However, Cheng Jin successfully revealed the basic structure of the galaxy. The game can progress to the third level. This time they arrived at the Palace of Eternal Bliss. The leading NPC turned into Khan. Cheng Jin is now confident, because she knows that this place is located in a trinary star system. It is impossible to predict the movements of the three bodies in the sky, so Khan's question is fundamentally unsolvable. Yet Khan is accompanied by two scientists, so Isaac Newton and Professor Turing. They use 30 million soldiers to build the human formation computer. That consumes unimaginable energy. Only then do they calculate that the chaotic era will begin in 3 days, and it will last for 8 months. Then, a stable era lasting 10,000 years will follow. Upon hearing this, Khan orders his people to go into dehydration and wait to be revived after 8 months and 3 days. The scientists place their hands on the ground to accelerate the passage of time. After 8 months, the stable era indeed arrives. Khan prepares to throw Cheng Jin and the other failed person into a pot and cook them. Cheng Jin quickly touches the ground with her palm to accelerate time. She doesn't believe in a 10,000-year stable era. Sure enough, the three suns in the sky gradually aligned. The planet was influenced by the combined gravitational pull of the three suns. Everything on the ground was pulled up into the sky. 30 million soldiers instantly rose up. Cheng Jin saw the follower among them. She wanted to reach out and grab the girl, but she couldn't overcome the immense gravity. At this point, Cheng Jin finally understood that the focus of the game was not on solving the three-body problem, but rather on how to rescue the people. It was at this moment that the female swordsman appeared, declaring the destruction of Civilization No. 184, due to the consecutive gravitational effects over Trisolar SYZYGY. But Cheng Jin established the true purpose of the game, which allowed them to proceed to the fourth level. At this moment, the person monitoring the game process on the computer handed a stack of data to Evans, and reported the appearance of 2 new candidates in Zone 6, and that the female player Cheng Jin had a deep emotional connection with the followers. Evans ordered an investigation into the backgrounds of the 2 individuals. Then he picked up a storybook, and read it aloud to the nearby speaker, and the thing on the other end of the speaker clearly didn't come from Earth. Shortly afterward, Cheng Jin received an invitation letter, asking her to meet at the bar tonight at 10 o'clock. Julian also received the same invitation letter. That evening, the two of them entered the Sunset Bar together, and what awaited them was the mysterious woman who had given Augie cigarette case. She congratulated them on reaching the 4th level. Julian and Cheng Jin had questions to ask, but the mysterious woman only said, "All the answers to your questions will be revealed once you enter the 4th level." Upon hearing this, the two of them took out metal caps and put them on. What came into view was a wasteland. The female swordsman stood not far away, holding the follower's hand. This time, she revealed the truth. No computer can predict the three-body problem indefinitely, so these civilizations are destined to end in chaos. But these scenes are not part of the game. They are the real problems that the Trisolarans are facing, since the homeland is destined to be destroyed. The only solution is to find a new home. Therefore, several decades ago, after receiving a signal from Earth, they immediately established a massive fleet of thousands of interstellar warships. They are the last hope of Civilization No. 9478. At this moment, the fleet is on its way to Earth. Although it is still for light years away from here, it is getting closer every minute and second.
You'll welcome us, won't you?
Cheng Jin and Julian finally understood that this so-called game was designed by the Trisolarans as a means to share their story with Earth players. Julian, however, didn't believe in this Trisolaran story and left the bar after packing his bag. But Cheng Jin chose to stay. The mysterious woman handed her an invitation letter. inviting Cheng Jin to attend a player summit. On the other hand, Julian returned home, only to find that all communication devices had lost signal. The next moment, the mysterious woman appeared and fatally stabbed him. Colin, who was monitoring downstairs, couldn't see any abnormalities. Colin quickly discovered Julian's body. However, there was no second person present in the surveillance footage that night. Augie suspected the mysterious woman was responsible, and believed that she had somehow erased herself from the surveillance using unknown means. Wade mentioned that Vera Yi had an invitation letter with 3 circles drawn on it. Upon hearing this, Cheng Jin presented her own invitation letter. She planned to attend the player summit in order to investigate the truth behind Julian's death. On the other side, Evans reported to the Trisolarans referred to as the Lord. He said that there would soon be a new member joining them through the game. Little did he know, the Lord revealed that the enemy already knew about the summit and Evans' location. Nevertheless, the Lord assured them that there was nothing to fear because they would be protected. The enemy mentioned by the Lord is actually Wade and Colin, and they have indeed located the ship where Evans is hiding. At this moment, Evans continues to read storybooks to the Lord as usual, and today's story is Little Red Riding Hood. The Lord doesn't understand why Little Red Riding Hood would open the door for the big bad wolf, and Evans explains that it's because the wolf is lying. It disguises itself as Grandma to deceive Little Red Riding Hood. The Lord on the other end of the speaker suddenly falls into contemplation because on their planet, people can directly communicate through thoughts, so the concept of lying doesn't exist. But the story of Little Red Riding Hood rings an alarm for the Lord. It realizes that humans can lie, which means that even Evans, who is present, cannot be completely trusted. Time quickly arrived at the day of the summit. Colin had previously planted surveillance devices on Cheng Jin's body. She entered the summit. The mysterious woman led Cheng Jin to the meeting venue, and informed her that the Supreme Commander of the Earth Trisolaran organization would also be present. Amidst thunderous applause, the Supreme Commander walked in. Cheng Jin realized that it was Yi Wenjie. Yi Wenjie stepped onto the stage to deliver a speech. She witnessed her homeland being torn apart, and her compatriots killing each other when she was young. And to this day, such phenomena continue to prevent humans from further harming each other and the world around them. The Trisolarans from 4 light years away will bring new knowledge and civilization. They will teach us how to survive and prosper. Although it will take the Trisolarans 400 years to reach Earth, we must prepare in advance. Unexpectedly, right after her speech, the police forcefully broke in through the doors. Yi Wenjie ordered everyone not to move, as whatever the situation, it was the will of the Lord. The Lord will protect us from harm by the enemy, and everyone obediently sat back down upon hearing this. The police approached and restrained the crowd, taking Cheng Jin away in the process. Unexpectedly, the mysterious woman witnessed this scene, and immediately shot and killed 2 police officers, causing chaos at the scene. Seeing that the mysterious woman was about to take advantage of the chaos to kill Cheng Jin, Colin intervened in time and saved her. The mysterious woman crawled into the bushes and escaped. After Cheng Jin left, she received a call from Will Downing. She was prepared to inform him about the recent situation. The scene shifted to London in 1982, where Yi Wenjie was unable to advance the 3-body plan alone. She extended an offer of cooperation to Evans, who had inherited an oil company. 2 years later, the 2 of them arrived at the coast of the North Atlantic, where they set up a research base on a ship. There were no borders or politics here, and no one could disturb Yi Wenjie. Yi Wenjie initially thought it would take many years to receive a response from the Trisolarans again, but Evans revealed that the Trisolarans had been trying to contact her since she left the base. They were on their way. Yi Wenjie was brought before Wade. She remained calm and composed, because no matter what strategies Wade may have, they cannot stop the arrival of the Trisolarans.
And when they arrive, you'll be so grateful.
Colin is interrogating Yi Wenjie. She has nothing to hide. Since the Lord allowed the police to arrest Yi Wenjie, it means that the information in her possession doesn't need to be kept confidential. Yi Wenjie also admitted that Evans is Vera Yi's biological father. Colin was very curious about a question. It took 8 years for Yi Wenjie to receive a reply from the It's the first time. So how is Evans currently communicating with the Trisolarans? He can't just wait on the ship for 8 years for a reply. The communication efficiency would be too low. Yi Wenjie stated that just because humans cannot achieve superluminal communication, which doesn't mean the Trisolarans can't. Upon hearing this, Colin went to report to Wade. He believed that since Yi Wenjie and her group respected the Trisolarans so much, they must have kept their communication records. As long as we find the hard drive with the archived records, we can know the Trisolarans' plans, and the hard drive is likely to be on Evans' cruise ship. However, the cruise ship, Judgment Day, has over 1,000 human traitors. How can they subdue everyone on the ship without damaging the data? Suddenly, Colin had an idea. The cruise ship Judgment Day had just applied for passage through the Panama Canal next month. He had a plan in mind, but he needed Augie's nanofiber assistance. Colin immediately went to find her, hoping that Augie could restart the project, but this also meant that the countdown would start again. Augie decided to prioritize the fate of humanity. She took Colin to the laboratory to restart the nanotech work, but unexpectedly, there was no countdown appearing before them. Why is this happening?
I think the Lord stopped protecting his flock.
Evans could never have imagined that simply, by telling the story of Little Red Riding Hood, it would trigger a crisis of trust in the Lord, and lead to their abandonment. Shortly after, Colin brought Augie to the Panama Canal. By setting up the nanofibers here, they could directly cut open the Judgment Day, and retrieve the hard drive. The next day, the enormous cruise ship Judgment Day arrived, and Wade's people were monitoring it from the base. Augie didn't know how many people on the ship would die in this operation. The cruise ship Judgment Day sailed into the trap. One moment the crew members were standing on the deck, and the next moment they were cut into two pieces, while the entire hull started to disintegrate. Evans realized the danger, and rushed into a secret room to retrieve the hard drive, intending to find a hiding place, but it was already too late. In the blink of an eye, Evans was cut into 3 sections by the fine threads, and the entire cruise ship Judgment Day shattered into thin slices. Thousands of lives vanished before Augie's eyes, and amidst the wreckage, she saw the remains of children. Shortly afterward, Wade found Evans' body and discovered the hard drive in his possession. But the problem was how to decrypt it. The quantum encryption technology of trisolarans is at least 20 years ahead of humans. Based on this estimate, if humans want to decrypt the hard drive's password, it would take at least 8 trillion years. Colin was speechless upon hearing this. Why don't we just pry it open? Who knows? Maybe we'll find some clues. The researcher was about to speak, but unexpectedly, the hard drive opened by itself. Colin understood that the Lord wanted them to open it. Inside the drive were approximately 28 gigabytes of text and media documents. Colin disdainfully remarked that it had less storage than his phone. The researcher continued scrolling, and found a file format they had never seen before, with a total capacity of 100 PB, equivalent to 100 million GB.
That's more than my phone.
After obtaining what he wanted, Wade immediately went to find Yi Wenjie, aiming to undermine her faith in the Lord. Wade first announced Evans' death and questioned Yi Wenjie. Didn't you say everything is according to the Lord's will? Why did it allow the police to arrest members of your organization? And why did it let us cut open the cruise ship Judgment Day? The reason is simple, because you have become sacrifice of peace. After Wade finished speaking, he played a recorded conversation between the Lord and Evans about Little Red Riding Hood.
We cannot coexist with liars. We are afraid of you.
Yi Wenjie couldn't believe that the Lord had abandoned them. After accomplishing his goal, Wade took Cheng Jin to the research base, hoping she could study the massive document named sophon. Cheng Jin and Wade put on metal helmets, and entered the game invented by the Trisolarans once again. Wade asked the sword holder, "What exactly is the sophon?" The sword holder counter-questioned the two. "How long does it take for the fleet to reach Earth?" "It would take 400 years. From the hunting era to the agricultural era, it took humans 90,000 years. But from the agricultural era to the industrial era, it only took about 10,000 years. The transition to the atomic age was further reduced to 200 years, and entering the information age took only 50 years. By the time the Trisolarans spent 400 years to reach Earth, humanity's intellect might have already surpassed them. Destroying the fleet wouldn't be that difficult. That's why the Trisolarans must restrain Earth's development. So, they developed the sophon to kill the science on Earth. The sophon is a supercomputer. Upon hearing this, Cheng Jin immediately objected, saying that no computer could be so small. The sword holder responded, "It's just that you can't do it. The universe is not the only three-dimensional space we occupy. There are other hidden dimensions in the world. They are folded too small for our vision to reach, but the Trisolarans have the technology to unfold them. They accumulate unimaginable energy that Earthlings cannot imagine, and concentrate it all in a single sophon, proton. They used up all their resources to create 4 sophons. The Trisolarans placed 2 of the sophons on Earth. When the sophons unfold to higher dimensions, the entire Earth will be enveloped in illusions. The Trisolarans can use this to control humanity. That's why particle accelerators around the world malfunction. Scientists face imminent death, and even the stars in the sky flicker in Morse code, because the sophons are everywhere. Cheng Jin and Wade were frightened and took off their metal helmets. The computers around them went haywire. Electronic devices worldwide scrambled, and all the screens displayed the same sentence in different languages. "You are all insects." The term insects was taught to the Lord by Evans. He used this term to describe Colin, and the other intelligence agents.
Because, well, that's what they are. Annoying, inconsequential, easy to eliminate.
And now humanity has become insects in the eyes of Trisolarans. A dark curtain falls from the sky, reflecting the appearance of the entire world. A giant eye appears in the sky. The news of the Trisolarans advancing towards Earth quickly spreads to every corner. Millions of people go rioting on the streets, in addition to the crowds calling for resistance against the aliens. Many religious sects begin to believe in Trisolarans. To them, the extraterrestrials are not invaders but saviors. On the other hand, Yi Wenjie has remained silent ever since she heard the recording. Colin has no choice but to ask Cheng Jin to talk with Yi Wenjie. Cheng Jin questions Yi Wenjie about her purpose, and what belief is worth sacrificing her daughter's life. Yi Wenjie states that she only wants to create a brand new world. But Trisolarans has discovered the true nature of humanity. We have a dark side that they cannot comprehend. While Yi Wenjie is willing to take the risk, Cheng Jin is deeply disappointed in her, and she says, "You have no right to make decisions for everyone." On the other side, Wade is discussing with scientists how to deal with the Trisolarans. He wants to launch a probe to intercept the enemy, but with Earth's current technology, it would take at least 100 years for the probe to reach 1% of the speed of light. This method is simply not feasible. Physics ignoramus Wade can only seek help from Cheng Jin. The two of them plan to activate 2,000 accelerators, coordinate the timing, temporarily diverting the attention of one sophon, and then figure out how to make the probe reach at least 1% of the speed of light in the shortest possible time. Cheng Jin came up with an idea. During the Ming Dynasty, the Chinese Navy built rockets with multiple small missiles inside, resulting in a medieval weapon with a killing power comparable to that of the 20th century. Cheng Jin combined this with the principle of nuclear pulse propulsion, and developed an initial plan to place 1,000 nuclear devices equidistantly between Earth and Trisolarans' fleet using spacecraft, and then propel the probe with a radiation sail. The first nuclear bomb will be detonated when the probe passes by, giving the probe a thrust of 30 kilonewtons. Then, in a similar manner, other bombs will be detonated, allowing the probe to approach the fleet at 1/12% of the speed of light. This idea is highly creative but comes with high costs and risks, and there is a possibility of errors. However, it is the only method to reach the speed of light in a short time. Therefore, Wade decides to go with Cheng Jin's suggestion. He named the plan Project Ladder. However, only Ogi can design the required radiation sails. But Ogi, having just witnessed the deaths of thousands of people, refuses to work for the ruthless Wade. Cheng Jin hasn't overcome the hurdle of convincing Ogi yet when a new problem arises. Because the propulsion of the probe relies on the bomb, it has no way to decelerate on its own. The probe and the enemy fleet will pass each other at 1% of the speed of light. They only have a few nanoseconds to gather fleet intelligence. Moreover, sophons might already know in advance. Wade wants to launch spy probes, but the Trisolarans will definitely try to destroy them. Wade remains calm and says the Trisolarans won't destroy the probes. They will willingly receive them, because what I will place on the probes are not cameras but human spies. Colin went to talk to Yi Wenjie, just like Cheng Jin. He wanted to know why Yi Viola died. The reason is actually very simple. Yi Wenjie made a mistake when transmitting information to Evans, and Viola discovered their conversation records. After learning the truth, she didn't say anything, and headed towards death without leaving a farewell letter. Since Yi Wenjie wasn't charged with any crimes, Colin obtained approval from his superiors, and released Yi Wenjie at 12 noon. However, he also planted a mole to follow her, and report her whereabouts every 4 hours. Meanwhile, under Will Downing's persuasion, Ogi decides to help Cheng Jin. Although she doesn't trust Wade, she believes Cheng Jin would never do anything harmful to humanity. As for Will Downing, who has been secretly in love with Cheng Jin for many years, he also wants to do something for her before he dies. So, in Cheng Jin's name, Will Downing buys a star. A recent trend among the wealthy, they call it the Stellar Project. All the money earned from buying and selling stars will be donated to the United Nations to prepare for the war in 400 years. The star Will Downing bought is DX3906, located 401.5 light-years away from Earth. Sol doesn't understand Will Downing's romantic gesture, especially considering the star cost nearly $20 million. To make matters worse, Will Downing doesn't want Cheng Jin to know about it. Such love is truly touching. Shortly after, Cheng Jin receives the certificate, but she doesn't care about who sent her the star. The problem with the probe is still unresolved. Even if the probe can reach 1% of the speed of light, it will take 200 years to intersect with the three-body problem fleet. No human can survive for that long. Fortunately, Wade finds Dr. Demikhov, who designs a cryogenic hibernation chamber that can slow down biological functions by a factor of 1,000, allowing indefinite hibernation and revival. The hibernation chamber has already been successfully tested on chimpanzees. Upon seeing this, Wade has an idea. He plans to enter hibernation and awaken for 1 week each year to handle important matters, ensuring he can live until the war with the Trisolarans in 400 years. However, just as the time problem is resolved, a weight problem arises. The ladder plan requires 1,000 bombs, but they currently only have a little over 300. In other words, they must reduce the weight of the probe to reach the target speed. However, the smallest hibernation device weighs over a ton. As a result, the plan to carry humans in hibernation chambers is overturned. At this point, Wade comes up with a solution. He suggests transporting only one human brain. It can be frozen using liquid helium. Although humans are currently unable to be fully thawed, Wade believes that the Trisolarans already possess this technology. They might even be able to safely thaw the brain and possibly clone a new body. However, this brain must be carefully selected. It not only needs to have knowledge of physics, chemistry, and rocket science, but also be willing to sacrifice itself. When Wade reaches this point, he already has a suitable candidate in mind, and that is Will Downing, who is suffering from cancer. Ogi and Cheng Chen strongly oppose this plan. Even if Will Downing agrees to sacrifice himself and be sent into space, it would allow him to infiltrate the Trisolaran ranks successfully. But how can he transmit information back to Earth? Let's not forget that we are all under the surveillance of the sophons. However, Wade expresses his belief in Will Downing's brain because, apart from the professor himself, no one knows what's going on in his little head. While sophons can monitor all data and conversations, they cannot monitor human brain activity. After realizing this, the wallfacer project has taken shape in Wade's mind. As a result, Augie is determined to withdraw from all the plans related to Wade. She uploads all her years of research to an online platform, making it freely available to anyone in need, and then takes the earliest flight to leave. This decision infuriates her partner, Denise. Fortunately, Denise quickly found an interesting project. It is the Escape Fund initiated by Colin's own son, Xiaoming. This thing is similar to a retirement fund. As long as you contribute £40 each month, the fund will use this money to build spaceships and send investors to escape to outer space. On the other hand, Cheng Jin went to find Will Downing and explained Wade's plan. She didn't want Will Downing to get involved, but Will Downing has loved Cheng Jin for so many years and understands her well. He understands that Cheng Jin advises him not to get involved, but deep down, he doesn't want to give up on the staircase project. After all, he's almost dying, so why not fulfill Cheng Jin's wish? So, he still agreed to Wade's proposal, but Will Downing refused to sign the loyalty oath because he was asked to swear allegiance to humanity.
Why would I swear loyalty to us if they could end up being better?
Will Downing is willing to be loyal to Cheng Jin, but he won't be responsible for all of humanity. Although his words made Wade very angry, they also indicate that Will Downing is the best candidate because of his neutral attitude, which makes him more likely to be accepted by the Trisolarans. Wade gave Will Downing a final chance to consider. Only if he presses all the agree buttons on the tablet will the hospital remove his brain. Will Downing specifically instructed not to let Cheng Jin come over, so she could only stay in the office. Unexpectedly, she accidentally learned that the star was a gift from Will Downing. Cheng Jin finally understood his thoughts and hurriedly grabbed her coat and ran to the hospital. Yet Will Downing was not in the ward. His brain had already been sent to the cryogenics room. On the other hand, Yi Wenjie returned home and packed up the things left by her daughter. She picked up a photo of the two of them and looked at it. Surprisingly, the young Vera Yi in the photo looked exactly like the follower in the game. After putting down the photo, Wenjie contacted Saul and they arranged to meet at the cemetery. Wenjie told him a joke about Einstein going to heaven. Somehow, Saul always felt there was something more to her words, but he couldn't grasp the deeper meaning for now. After finishing all of this, Yi Wenjie bought a plane ticket to return to China. She went back to where it all began, the Red Coast base. Wenjie wanted to end her life there, but unexpectedly, the mysterious woman Anna appeared again.
Sorry you had to come all this way to do something I was going to do myself.
The two of them watched the last sunset together in London. Saul lost his friends one after another and returned to days of idleness. He didn't want to worry about anything. He couldn't control the world 400 years later. The world is unpredictable. A speeding car killed his friend, and then Colin called Saul over and announced Yi Wenjie's death. He explained that the car accident was not an accident, because the vehicle was unmanned. The Trisolarans were responsible for this. If it weren't for Saul being pushed away by a bystander, he would have been the one crushed under the car. So, Colin suspects that the information Yi Wenjie told Saul in the cemetery must be important, and that's why the Trisolarans wanted to eliminate him. But Saul is unaware of all this. Then Colin threw him a bulletproof vest. Under the escort of the convoy, the two boarded the plane. Saul glanced discreetly out the window and noticed fighter jets escorting them. What is all this for? Saul was brought by a group of people to the fourth meeting of the Planet Defense Council, PDC, where the wallfacer project was officially established. The plan will select several meditators who will independently devise plans relying on their own thinking, without communicating with the outside world or needing to explain their actions. Everything about the plan will be kept in their minds, thus avoiding monitoring by sophons and the world of Trisolarans. Meditators are meant to mislead and deceive, creating a bewildering maze of illusions that encompasses the entire world, including both enemies and allies, causing the enemy to lose their correct judgment within the maze. Therefore, the United Nations selected the top 3 individuals. The first meditator is General Hu Bailin, the second meditator is Professor Layla Arich, and the third meditator is Saul. He couldn't understand why he, a low-ranking researcher, was chosen. Nevertheless, the Secretary General mysteriously said that the enemy found him to be special. Saul didn't want to become a meditator, and immediately wanted to leave. The Secretary General said he could do as he pleased. Saul left the meeting room in anger, and ordered Colin not to follow him. Meditators have the highest authority, so Colin had no choice but to let Saul go. Unexpectedly, as soon as he left the building, he was shot. Fortunately, Saul was wearing a bulletproof vest, and only suffered a broken rib. Colin quickly apprehended the assailant. Saul requested to meet with that person. Colin said, "As a meditator, everyone listens to you." Saul was completely speechless, saying, "I have already declined the meditator proposal." But Colin smiled and said, "This is all part of the strategy to confuse the enemy." Shortly afterward, the assassin was brought before Saul. The assassin was disappointed to see Saul alive. Feeling remorseful for not completing the assigned task, Saul explained, "I'm really not a meditator. Can you convince your superior? Please stop trying to get rid of me." But no one believes Saul's words, and thinks he is deliberately misleading the Trisolarans. At this point in the development of events, Saul finally understands that it may not be important whether he is a meditator or not. What matters is how others believe, and how the Trisolarans perceive it. But Saul still cannot understand one thing. Why him? With a population of 8 billion people on Earth, why did the United Nations choose him? The Secretary General replied, "I only know the indirect reasons. When the time is right, it will be revealed to you. As for the true reason, no one knows. You have to find the answer yourself." Since Saul cannot refuse his fate, he decides to use his privilege to accompany Will Downing on his final journey. The Staircase project has reached its final step, and the core members are witnessing the launch of the probe. Cheng Jin specially packed a few bags of seeds on it, including wheat, corn, green beans, and chili peppers that Will Downing likes. The rocket soars into the atmosphere. There are a few hours left until the spacecraft reaches the first detonation point. Nervously, Cheng Jin takes Saul out to relax. She is also curious about the reason her friend was chosen as a meditator. Saul couldn't help but recall the conversation in the cemetery, but he refrains from expressing his thoughts because the sophon is still monitoring them. The conversation between the two shifts to Augie, who has been missing since her departure. In fact, Augie is currently in Mexico, helping refugees by using nanofibers to filter dirty water and reduce the incidence of dysentery among refugees. On the Staircase project side, everything is progressing steadily according to plan, with the arranged nuclear bombs exploding one after another. Just as the plan is about to succeed, unexpectedly, the nanomaterials accidentally break, causing the probe to deviate from its course, and the Staircase project is declared a failure. Wade boards a private plane to leave, but unexpectedly, the sword holder suddenly appears on the screen. Wade realizes that the wallfacer project has been activated. Otherwise, the Trisolarans wouldn't have contacted him. The sword holder takes control of the aircraft, and issues a warning to Wade. "We will always be by your side. In every room you enter, we will be waiting one step ahead." It seems that this war will not easily reveal the ultimate winner. Meanwhile, Anna receives a metal hat. She immediately puts it on and enters the gaming world. On the other side, Saul and Cheng Jin are very depressed, because their friend Will Downing has completely vanished in outer space. Seeing their unhappiness, Colin takes them to the riverside in the outskirts. It's the early morning with heavy dew, and countless small insects are busy on the water's surface. Colin tells them that humans hate these small insects the most, and have tried various methods to eradicate them. Despite centuries and thousands of years passing, the insects still thrive. Trisolarans regard humans as insects, and believes they can easily be eliminated, which is a fundamentally flawed perception. Upon hearing this, Cheng Jin and Saul regain their spirits. The story of the first season ends here. This Netflix adaptation is actually suitable for viewers who haven't read the original work. The team made significant adaptations to cater to a global audience, resulting in a fast-paced and tightly woven plot. As a regular science fiction production, it can be considered an interesting choice. The TV series presents a narrower scope, and while the narrative pace accelerates, it significantly compresses the motivations and backgrounds of the main characters, resulting in insufficient exploration of their depth and complexity. Overall, there are gains and losses. If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscribe.